The stars outside shimmered like frozen tears as the Terran flagship drifted in orbit above the violet world of Elthara. Inside the Grand Hall, the air felt heavy, filled with silence that was too careful, too restrained. Every alien noble stood in their radiant armor, and every human officer stood tense in dress uniform. Somewhere between them stood one man who wished he were anywhere else. His name was Captain Aaron Vale of the United Terran Fleet, decorated, calm, and steady in battle. But now his mission was peace. Or at least that's what the Council had told him. The war between Earth and the Elthar Dominion had ended with both sides shattered, their fleets burned, and their soldiers exhausted. A treaty had been proposed, one that would be sealed by marriage between their royal bloodline and a human representative. Aaron had been chosen not for his rank, but for his reputation, honorable, brave, impossible to intimidate. He had never expected the ceremony to feel like walking into exile. Across the polished crystal floor stood the alien princess, Sarai of Elthara. Her skin held a soft, iridescent glow, pale like moonlight, and her eyes shimmered in shades of violet and silver. She was beautiful in a way that seemed unearthly, and yet there was a hardness in her gaze that reminded Aaron of cold steel. She didn't want this either, that much was clear. The counselors around her spoke in low tones, but she stood silent, her expression carved from ice. When the Eltharan High Seer began the ritual, Aaron felt the weight of every eye in the galaxy on him. The words were ancient, translated into both tongues through soft mechanical whispers. By union, conflict shall end. By bond, two worlds shall stand. He repeated the words, his voice firm, though his heart ached at their emptiness. Across from him, Sarai's voice was soft but steady, without warmth or hate, just duty. When the ceremony ended and the hall erupted in polite applause, Aaron looked up to see her glance at him for the first time, not as a symbol, not as a soldier, but as a man. For a fraction of a second, he thought he saw something flicker behind her calm, curiosity, or sorrow. The following days were filled with politics. The human and Eltharan delegations worked together, signing papers, exchanging gifts, pretending that centuries of mistrust had dissolved overnight. Aaron did what was expected, stood at her side, smiled for the cameras, answered questions with rehearsed grace. But in private, he remained quiet. Their quarters were large and silent, filled with alien light that made everything glow softly blue. Sarai barely spoke to him except through formal words. When she did, it was with careful distance, as if every sentence had to pass through layers of duty first. One night, after another long diplomatic dinner, Aaron stood on the balcony overlooking the alien city below. Towers of glass and light rose like frozen waves, and faint streams of ships crossed the dark sky. He heard soft footsteps behind him. When he turned, the princess was there, still wearing her ceremonial robes. For once, there was no audience, no guards, no protocol. "You do not belong here," she said quietly. He nodded. "Neither do you, I think." Her eyes met his, sharp and unreadable. "You think this marriage is peace. But for my people, it is humiliation. They do not see you as a husband, they see you as proof that we lost." Aaron sighed, looking back at the horizon. "And for my people, it's the same. They see this union as a reminder that we couldn't win without compromise." He paused. "Maybe peace is always built on something uncomfortable." Sarai studied him. "You speak differently from most humans I have met." "Maybe I've met too many wars," he said simply. For a moment, the faintest smile ghosted across her face before vanishing again. "You will not last long here," she murmured. "This court eats truth and feeds on deceit. Even I am not safe from it." He turned to her, his voice steady. "Then we both better learn to watch each other's backs." That was the first time she didn't correct him for speaking without permission. Days turned into weeks. Rumors began to stir, whispers of rebellion, of generals unhappy with the peace. Some believed Sarai had betrayed the Dominion by marrying a human. Others believed Aaron was here as a spy, a weapon dressed in diplomacy. He ignored the murmurs until one night, when a strange sound woke him from sleep. The room was dark, the alien light dimmed to soft gray. He heard a low hiss, a sound that didn't belong. Training took over. He rolled from the bed just as a sharp blade slashed through the sheets where he had been lying. In the faint light, a figure in shadow lunged again. Aaron caught the attacker's arm, twisted, and forced him to the floor with practiced motion. The weapon, a thin, curved dagger that glowed faintly blue, skittered across the floor. Before he could question the intruder, The door burst open and Sarai rushed in, her guards seconds behind her. Her eyes widened at the sight, the human kneeling over a subdued assassin. The guard captain seized the intruder, pulling back the hood to reveal scaled gray skin and a crest of black spines, one of her own species. Sarai's voice trembled for the first time. He was from my household guard. Aaron stood slowly, his breathing steady. Then someone inside wants this piece dead. She met his eyes, the icy calm finally cracking. Or they want me dead for bringing a human into our bloodline. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Aaron said quietly, "Either way, Princess, you're stuck with me." That night changed everything. From that moment on, the fragile boundary between them began to shift. Sarai no longer treated him like a stranger. She began asking about Earth, about the oceans he missed, about the stars humans called home. In return, Aaron asked about Elthara, its people, its music, the legends they whispered. Slowly, cautiously, the two began to understand each other, not through politics, but through shared isolation. But fate was already moving faster than either of them knew. 2 weeks after the assassination attempt, a human supply ship sent to deliver food and medical resources was destroyed on approach to Elthara. The explosion lit up the skies above the capital. Both sides blamed each other instantly. Human command claimed Eltharan sabotage. The Dominion accused Earth of staging the incident. The peace that had barely taken root now trembled on the edge of collapse. Aaron was summoned before the Eltharan Council. He stood tall as accusations flew, words like spy and traitor echoing across the chamber. Sarai stood beside him, silent but fierce. When one of the alien generals called him a deceiver sent to enslave us through marriage, she finally spoke, her voice sharp as lightning. "Enough," she said, her tone cutting through the noise. "If you wish to blame someone, then blame me. I agreed to this union. I stood beside him. If he is guilty, then so am I." Her courage silenced the room. For the first time, Aaron saw her not as a forced bride, but as a leader, someone who carried the weight of two worlds with a spine of steel. When the council session ended, they walked side by side through the empty corridor. "You didn't have to do that," Aaron said softly. She looked at him, her voice calm but low. "I did, because if this peace breaks, millions will die, and I'm tired of death." Outside, thunder rolled across the alien sky. Aaron looked at her and felt something shift inside him, a realization that this marriage, forced or not, might be the only thing holding back another war. He didn't know it yet, but the real enemy was already moving in the shadows, watching them both. And soon they would learn that this union, meant to end a war, was destined to begin something far greater than either side had planned. The news of the destroyed supply ship spread like wildfire through the galaxy. On Earth, angry crowds gathered outside the Terran embassy, shouting that the Eltharans had betrayed them. On Elthara, the streets filled with alien citizens demanding the human captain's execution. Peace, which had seemed fragile but real, now looked ready to collapse at any moment. Captain Aaron Vale stood in his quarters, looking out over the glowing alien skyline. The horizon flickered with news drones broadcasting the same image, his face marked with accusations and suspicion. He felt the walls closing in. His own fleet was now silent, their transmissions cut by Eltharan security. To the aliens, he was a hostage. To humans, he was a question mark. The door slid open softly. Princess Sarai entered, her robe flowing behind her like mist. Her expression was calm, but her eyes carried something new, fear mixed with guilt. "The council meets again in 1 hour," she said quietly. "They will decide your fate." Aaron turned toward her. "And what will you say?" Sarai hesitated before answering. "The truth, that I don't know who destroyed the ship, but I will not let them kill you to satisfy their anger." He smiled faintly. "You've changed since the day we met," she looked away. "You've made me see things differently. My people think strength is shown by never bending, but perhaps sometimes strength means standing beside the one you are told to hate." The words hung between them for a long moment. Neither spoke as the distant rumble of storm clouds rolled across the alien sky. When the council session began, Aaron entered under heavy guard. The chamber was filled with tension, alien generals glaring, diplomats whispering, the air thick with judgment. Sarai took her seat at the center, her crown dimmed to a silver glow. The High Seer raised his voice, echoing through the vast hall. We are gathered to decide if the treaty stands, or if this human's deception has ended it. One by one, the council members spoke. Some demanded the human be imprisoned until Earth confessed. Others said execution would send a clear message of strength. Only a few, mostly younger members, pleaded for restraint. Aaron listened silently, knowing any defense would sound like desperation. Then Sarai stood. "You all speak of vengeance," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "But I see only fear. Fear of peace. Fear that if this union succeeds, you will lose your excuses for war." The generals growled, but she continued. "The explosion could have come from anywhere. We have enemies beyond these walls, those who profit from chaos. My guard was already infiltrated once. We forget too easily that someone tried to kill us both." Murmurs swept through the chamber. Aaron watched her with quiet respect. She wasn't defending him out of pity. She was protecting what little hope still existed. The High Seer struck his staff. "Enough. Until proof is found, the human shall remain under supervision within the royal compound. The council will investigate. It wasn't freedom, but it was life." As guards led him out, Sarai caught his eye and gave the smallest nod. Days passed in tense silence. The investigation went nowhere. Each side accused the other of hiding evidence. But Aaron couldn't shake the feeling that the attack had been too well timed, too perfect. Someone wanted them divided, someone powerful. Late one night, while reviewing communications logs on a hidden device he had smuggled from his ship, Aaron found something strange. A signal had been intercepted hours before the explosion, a coded transmission bouncing between human and Eltheran channels. The encryption was hybrid, using both species' military codes. It meant only one thing: whoever sent it had access to both sides. He showed the data to Sarai in secret. She studied the hologram with narrowed eyes. "This came from the outer colonies," she said softly. "There are mercenary fleets out there. Pirates, smugglers, and warlords who refuse peace." Aaron nodded. "Someone wants to light the fire again." Sarai stepped closer, lowering her voice. "If this is true, we can't trust the council. Too many of them have ties to the warlords. We need to find the source ourselves." He frowned. "That's dangerous." She met his eyes, calm but resolute. "Peace is always dangerous." So they began their secret search. At night, they slipped away from guards and used old palace tunnels that led to forgotten communication arrays. Aaron's military training and Sarai's knowledge of ancient codes made them a formidable team. Every night brought new fragments of truth, stolen logs, intercepted messages, faint whispers of a name repeated over and over: the Silent Hand. It was said to be a hidden network of soldiers and spies from both sides who refused peace, believing war was the only path to strength. Their leader was unknown, their goal to destroy the alliance before it took root. One evening, as Aaron decoded another message, he froze. "They're planning something," he murmured. "A second strike, something big." Sarai leaned closer. "Where?" He tapped the glowing screen. "The treaty renewal ceremony tomorrow." For a moment, she couldn't breathe. That ceremony would bring every major leader from both sides under one roof. If an attack happened then, it would mean full war. They moved quickly. Aaron armed himself with what weapons he could find, mostly ceremonial blades and a pulse pistol locked away for display. Sarai contacted her most trusted servant, an elderly scholar named Vane, who had once taught her diplomacy. He agreed to help them sneak into the restricted wing where the security systems were controlled. That night, under the silver moons of Elthera, they moved through the corridors, quiet as shadows. The palace was still, its guards unaware that history was balancing on a knife's edge. In the control chamber, Aaron accessed the internal grid. "There," he said. Someone planted a remote detonation command inside the energy lines below the council hall. Sarai's hand trembled slightly. "Can we stop it?" "I think so," he said, fingers flying over the controls. "But the trigger is external. It's coming from outside the palace. Someone out there has to activate it." Without hesitation, she said, "Then we go find them." They raced through the corridors toward the landing platforms. The night air was cold, filled with the hum of engines and the faint shimmer of lightning far away. As they reached the open balcony, a small craft hovered in the distance, its lights off, drifting too close to be coincidence. Aaron raised his weapon. "That's our bomber." Before he could fire, the ship unleashed a burst of plasma. The balcony exploded behind them, throwing both of them to the ground. The heat seared across his back, but he pulled Sarai close, shielding her from the falling debris. The ship turned, preparing for another pass. "Go!" he shouted, dragging her behind a pillar. He aimed carefully and fired 3 times. The first shot missed, the second struck its engine, and the third tore through the cockpit. The craft spiraled downward in a burst of blue flame, crashing into the distant plains beyond the city. For a moment, there was silence, just the crackle of burning metal and the distant wail of alarms. Sarai looked at him in disbelief. "You saved them. You saved everyone." Aaron shook his head, breathing hard. "Not yet. We need proof. We need to show the council who's behind this." They recovered fragments from the ship wreckage before the guards arrived, enough to trace the signal source. The data revealed hidden accounts, encrypted orders, and signatures from high-ranking Eltharan and Terran officials who had funded the Silent Hand. The truth was uglier than either had guessed. When they presented the evidence to the council the next morning, the hall erupted in chaos. Faces turned pale, voices shouted, and accusations flew like arrows. But this time Sarai didn't let them talk over her. She rose and spoke with the calm of a true ruler. "This," she said, holding up the device, "is the reason our peace almost died. Not humans, not Eltharans, but those who fear unity more than war. We will not let them win." The hall fell silent. For the first time, both species listened, not as enemies, but as survivors who had nearly lost everything again. When it was over, Aaron and Sarai walked out together under the same sky where the smoke of the wreck still faded. She looked at him, her voice quiet but warm. "You were forced to marry me for peace, but perhaps fate wanted something else." He smiled faintly. "Maybe fate got tired of waiting for us to stop fighting." Their eyes met, and for a moment there was no war, no politics, no duty, only the quiet understanding between 2 hearts that had fought for peace and found something more. But deep within the shadows of the city, another signal flickered to life. A distorted voice whispered through static, "The Silent Hand will rise again." Aaron didn't know it yet, but this was only the calm before the storm. The city of Elthara shimmered beneath the twin suns, but peace remained fragile. The council had punished the known traitors, yet deep down everyone knew the Silent Hand was not finished. The people celebrated their heroes, but behind every cheer hid fear that another attack could come at any time. Captain Aaron Vale stood on a balcony overlooking the alien capital. His uniform crisp, but his eyes tired. He had become a symbol of unity. Humans called him the Peace Guardian, while the Eltharans called him the Bonded Protector. He hated both titles. He wasn't a hero. He had only done what anyone should when lives were at stake. But his marriage to Princess Sarai had turned into more than politics now. It was the bridge between 2 worlds. Sarai joined him on the balcony, her long silver hair catching the morning light. She looked peaceful, but he noticed the shadows beneath her eyes. "You haven't slept," he said gently. "I can't," she admitted. "Every night I hear whispers in the palace halls. Some of my father's old generals think the council was too kind. They say peace has made us weak." He frowned. "They still hold power?" "Enough to cause trouble," she said softly. "They hide behind respect for the crown, but I know they're preparing something." Aaron crossed his arms. "Then we find them before they act. We've come too far to lose this." For days they worked in silence, following trails of information that twisted like vines. They met with loyal guards, decoded intercepted messages, and cross-checked lists of military movements. Slowly, a pattern began to appear: ships disappearing from radar, supplies quietly rerouted, and communication lines cut off near the southern desert. Aaron stared at the map glowing before them. "Someone's building something out there," he murmured. "Too organized to be random," Sarai nodded grimly. The southern desert was once home to the Dominion's war factories. If the Silent Hand took control of them, they could rebuild an army in months. Aaron looked at her with determination. "Then we go there ourselves." The council refused permission. They claimed it was too dangerous for the royal couple to travel into unstable territory. But Sarai had already made up her mind. That night, under the cover of darkness, she and Aaron slipped out of the palace in a small stealth craft, guided only by Vane, the old scholar who had once saved them from the assassins. The journey through the desert was long and silent. Endless dunes of violet sand stretched beneath the stars. Strange crystal storms glowed faintly in the distance, painting the horizon with soft light. Aaron piloted the craft carefully while Sarai studied the radar. "There," she said, pointing at a flickering signal. A power reading too strong to be natural. They landed behind a ridge and climbed the rocky slope. From above, they saw a hidden base half buried beneath the desert floor. Metal towers rose like spears, and around them moved hundreds of armored figures, some human, some Eltharan. Aaron whispered, "The Silent Hand. They've joined forces." Sarai's voice was low. So much hate just to keep the war alive. They watched as transports loaded with weapons lifted into the sky. In the center of the base, a massive black ship stood ready, its hull engraved with the symbol of the Silent Hand, a broken circle surrounding a single blade. Aaron took out a small scanner. "If we can plant this near the command hub, the Council can trace their network. We'll finally have proof." Sarai placed her hand over his. "You're risking too much." He looked at her and smiled faintly. "So are you." They moved carefully through the shadows, slipping between machinery and patrols. The air was hot, filled with the low hum of engines. Twice they hid behind crates as guards passed by. Finally, they reached the central control spire. Aaron attached the scanner beneath a panel, the light turning green to show it was active. Just as they turned to leave, a voice echoed behind them. "I was hoping you'd come." They spun around. From the shadows stepped a tall figure in black armor. His face was half hidden beneath a metallic mask, but Aaron recognized the voice instantly. It was Commander Reth, once one of Sarai's most trusted generals during the war. Sarai's breath caught. "Reth, you were dead." He smiled coldly. "So the Council said. But I survived. And I saw what peace has done to us, softened us, chained us to human mercy." His eyes glowed faintly blue behind the mask. "You betrayed our kind, Sarai, but don't worry. I will cleanse that mistake." Aaron raised his weapon, but Reth was faster. With a flick of his hand, energy flared, disarming Aaron and sending him crashing into a metal wall. The sound echoed through the chamber. Sarai stepped in front of Aaron, her voice steady. "Reth, stop this. You once swore to protect Elthara. What you're doing will destroy everything we built." Reth's tone hardened. "What you built is slavery. We were gods once, and now you kneel to humans. No more." He turned toward the console, pressing a sequence of keys. The base lights shifted to red. "You see, Princess, you came at the perfect time. My fleet launches tonight. The first targets are the Terran colonies, and when they fall, I'll let the humans blame you." Aaron struggled to his feet, his head spinning. "Not if we stop you first." He lunged forward, grabbing a fallen guard's weapon and firing. The blast struck Reth's shoulder, sending sparks across his armor. Reth roared and retaliated with a surge of energy that shattered the floor. Sarai pulled Aaron out of the way just in time. They ran as alarms blared across the base. Guards flooded the halls, but Aaron moved like a soldier born for chaos, covering Sarai as she guided them through maintenance tunnels. Explosions thundered behind them as power cells overloaded. At the landing pad, they reached their small craft, its engine still warm. Aaron shouted, "Go!" and climbed into the pilot's seat. As they lifted off, Reth's ship rose from the hangar below, its dark wings spreading wide. The chase tore across the desert sky. Plasma fire streaked past them, lighting up the night. Aaron weaved between sandstorms, his hands steady despite the chaos. Sarai worked the communications console. "I'm sending our coordinates to the fleet," she shouted. "If they receive it in time, they can intercept him. Hold on." Aaron yelled as another blast rocked their ship. He spun the craft sharply, diving into the storm. Lightning flashed around them, hiding them for a few seconds. He used the moment to reverse course and fly low behind Reth's ship. "Let's end this," he said, arming the ship's pulse cannons. The two vessels clashed in the storm, light and sound merging into chaos. At last Aaron locked onto the power core. "Now!" he shouted, firing both cannons. The shots tore through the rear engines of Reth's vessel. Fire burst across its hull. The ship began to fall, spiraling toward the desert below. They watched it crash in a cloud of sand and flame. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Sarai whispered, "It's over." But Aaron shook his head. "No, Reth doesn't die that easily. We need to be sure." They landed near the wreck. The night was silent except for the crackle of burning metal. Inside the twisted remains, they found no body, only a single black gauntlet lying on the ground. Sarai stared at it, her voice barely a whisper. "He's still alive." Aaron placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll be ready when he returns." By dawn, they returned to the capital. The council received their evidence and confirmed the existence of Reth's fleet. Combined Terran and Eltharan forces were deployed to secure the desert base. The people celebrated again, their faith in peace renewed. That evening, Sarai stood with Aaron beneath the glowing sky. The air was cool, filled with the scent of alien blossoms. "You've saved my world twice now," she said softly. He smiled. "You saved it too. You're the heart of this peace." She looked at him, eyes shining. "When this began, I thought we were prisoners of duty, but now, I think fate brought us together for something greater." He met her gaze. "Maybe it did." They stood close, neither speaking, as the stars began to rise. For the first time, it didn't feel like Earth and Elthara were two worlds. It felt like one. But far away, beneath the desert ruins, a figure crawled from the wreckage. Commander Reth's mask was shattered. His armor burned, yet his eyes still glowed. He looked toward the sky where the royal craft had vanished and whispered, "The silent hand never dies." Weeks passed since the desert battle, and for a brief time, peace truly seemed possible. The alliance between Earth and Elthara strengthened, with trade routes opening and joint fleets patrolling the outer systems. For once, humans and aliens stood side by side, not as conquerors or enemies, but as partners rebuilding what war had torn apart. Captain Aaron Vale was now more than a soldier. He had become the human ambassador on Elthara, representing the Terran fleet in all matters of diplomacy. But he never got used to the attention. Every step in the palace still felt heavy, as though the marble floors carried memories of the past. Sarai, now crowned queen after her father's passing, ruled with grace. She led her people through rebuilding efforts, always seeking harmony where others saw division. Yet even as her crown shone, shadows still followed her. Reports came of missing convoys and whispers of unrest on distant colonies. The name Silent Hand had faded from the public, but Aaron knew they hadn't vanished. One evening, Aaron entered the royal council chamber to find Sarai standing alone before the vast window that overlooked the glowing city. "You're working too late again," he said softly. She turned with a faint smile. "You sound like Vane. He says the same thing every night." "Then maybe he's right," Aaron said, stepping beside her. The city lights reflected in his eyes. "You've done more in a few months than most rulers do in years." Sarai's expression softened. "Peace is fragile, Aaron. If I stop even for a moment, it could break." He studied her quietly, then said, "You don't have to carry it alone anymore." For a heartbeat, she looked like she might answer, but before she could, the door burst open. A guard entered, breathless. "Your Majesty, we received a distress signal. One of our patrol ships was ambushed near the outer moon of Nareth." Sarai straightened instantly. "Any survivors?" "Only fragments of transmission. But the signal carried an old code, one used by the Dominion Warfleet." Aaron's jaw tightened. "Reth," the guard nodded grimly. "We believe so." The room fell silent. Aaron and Sarai exchanged a single look, and words were no longer needed. The war they thought they had ended was beginning to stir again. Within hours, the Eltharan flagship Radiant Dawn launched into orbit, carrying both the Queen and her human husband. The stars stretched around them like silver rivers as the ship sped toward Nareth's moon. The crew moved with precision, their faces pale under the cold light of hyperspace. Aaron stood on the bridge beside Sarai. "You shouldn't have come," he said quietly. She looked at him, her voice steady. "If this is truly Reth, he's after me. I won't hide while others fight." He didn't argue. He had long since learned that she had the courage of 10 soldiers. When they dropped out of hyperspace, the sight that met them made the crew fall silent. Floating above the pale moon was a massive black fortress, an unfinished battle station, its core pulsing with dark energy. Ships swarmed around it like insects, each bearing the mark of the Silent Hand. Aaron whispered, "He's been building an army right under our noses." Sarai clenched her fists. "We end it today." The Eltharan and Terran fleets moved into formation, their engines glowing blue. On the comms, human admirals coordinated with alien captains, their voices steady but tense. It was the first time both fleets had gone to battle together. "Signal from the fortress," a communications officer said. "It's him." Reth's image appeared on the main screen. His armor blackened, his face scarred, one eye glowing red. "My queen," he said mockingly. "You should have stayed in your palace. Now you'll watch your precious alliance burn." Sarai stood tall, her tone like ice. "You've already lost once, Reth. Don't force me to destroy what's left of you." He laughed. "You think you can destroy me? I am the fire that peace cannot kill. The transmission cut and the battle began. Light filled the void as ships unleashed torrents of energy. Explosions bloomed like distant suns. Aaron's voice was calm as he commanded the tactical crews. Focus fire on their power cores. Disable, don't destroy. We need the fortress intact if we want to find who funds them. But Reth had planned well. His ships were fast, unpredictable, striking with precision before vanishing into shadow. The battle dragged on for hours, and both fleets took heavy losses. Then, without warning, the fortress began to charge a weapon at its core, a dark sphere of energy growing brighter every second. Sarai gripped the railing. That's not a defense cannon. It's a reactor overload. He's going to destroy the whole system. Aaron's voice cut through the chaos. Then we have to shut it down from inside. She turned to him, horrified. You'll never make it out alive, he smiled faintly. We've heard that before. Before she could stop him, he was already strapping into a shuttle. She followed, refusing to let him go alone. If you go, I go, she said firmly. The shuttle dove through the battlefield, weaving between debris and laser fire. They landed on the outer shell of the fortress, the surface trembling beneath them. Together, they fought their way through corridors filled with smoke and the hum of unstable power. Inside the core chamber, Reth awaited them, his damaged armor glowing faintly from the energy coursing through the floor. I knew you would come, he said, his voice filled with cold satisfaction. You always do what fate tells you, Captain Vale, but fate belongs to me now. Aaron stood his ground. No, Reth. Fate belongs to those who fight for others, not for themselves. Reth drew his blade, crackling with energy. The clash was fierce, metal against plasma, sparks filling the air. Sarai joined in, her twin daggers flashing. The room shook with every strike, the hum of the reactor growing louder. Reth's strength was monstrous, fueled by the reactor's energy. He struck Aaron down with a heavy blow, sending him sprawling near the control panel. The human coughed, blood on his lip but defiance still burning in his eyes. Sarai attacked again, her movements graceful but desperate. Reth blocked her, laughing. You think your heart can save him? Aaron rose behind him. It already did. He slammed a plasma charge onto the control core. Alarms blared as the energy field began to collapse. The fortress started shaking violently. Reth's eyes widened. You fool. You'll destroy us all. Aaron grabbed Sarai's hand. Time to go. They sprinted through the collapsing corridors as explosions tore the structure apart. Behind them, Reth's roar echoed one last time before being swallowed by fire. Their shuttle burst out of the fortress just as it exploded, the shockwave sending a ripple across space. The stars lit up in silence as debris scattered like ashes. Back aboard the flagship, the crew cheered, but Aaron and Sarai said nothing. They just looked out the viewport, watching the wreck drift among the stars. Sarai turned to him, her eyes soft. You always find a way to save everyone. He shook his head. Not everyone, but enough to keep hope alive. When they returned to Elthara, the people greeted them as legends. The war was truly over this time, the silent hand destroyed, its leader gone. But for Aaron and Sarai, the meaning of victory was quieter. That night, they stood together on the palace balcony once more. The twin moons hung above, and the breeze carried the scent of peace. Sarai looked at him, her voice gentle. When we first met, I thought you were my prison. Now I know you were my freedom, Aaron smiled, and you were my reason to stay. They watched the stars in silence, the galaxy peaceful at last. But as the wind swept through the night, Aaron couldn't help but glance toward the horizon. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of known space, new stars were forming, and he knew that peace was never permanent. But for tonight, it was enough. He reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. Two souls, once enemies, now bound not by politics or fear, but by something far stronger. Fate had indeed chosen other plans, and this time, they didn't mind.